And again, my apology for not being able to connect the name to the face.
Thanks, Chairperson.
Yeah.
I think what we witnessed yesterday was not different from a delegation led by all men led by Solplachi, having to sail a ship for months to go back the Queen for recognition in the newly established Anglo-Boer Union of South Africa administration as educated elite clever blacks, but this time around they were monitored by their white masters so that the script remains intact and they don't clarify the contradictions of genocide. That indeed Britain was a colonizer, and the reason they want to sustain their relations in South Africa is because their annual trade has reduced significantly annually with 4.18%. Now it calls for concern in their economy. And we know that they benefit through platinum, they benefit through gold and other minerals to sustain their economies. So these are not necessarily genuine visits, but it's an attempt to monitor our government operations and how our parliament is composed in the interest of themselves. So, but again, you find that Britain is a huge proponent of just energy transition. And just energy transition is one of the strategic structural reforms processes where they would want to take equity of 63 million to the ownership of 10 with an individual who happens to be black as a proxy, but mostly a non-executive director. So these are regressive economic policies that MK party rejects, similarly to what would have been presented by the Minister of Finance yesterday in the budget. In sustenance of these regressive economic policies that seeks to enforce structural changes, that would primarily mean that the economy remains in the hands of the minority. But the contradictions, of course, in the Russia-Ukraine situation, the UK has been the biggest supporter, diplomatically and militarily, to Ukraine against Russia. And if the tables were to turn, where there was a threat against the UK.
Honorable Ntshingila, can you move to the left?
I'm trying
your
to.
voice can go into the mic.
Oh, chair, okay.
Because you are not very audible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear him now?
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not used to mics, chair, but it's fine. So the contradiction between the Russia-Ukraine situation and the Palestinian-Israel situation, you'd find that UK is a serious proponent of land dispossession. It started in South Africa and many other African countries where the Anglo biasly and through their self-interest invaded countries and taken their land. And they've not said a word in the South African transformation agenda in us acquiring our land back for our own development and our own growth of the economy, but also as a process of reparations and restoration of our own identity and culture. In the Palestine, they're doing the same thing. They are supporting immigration of white men characterizing themselves as Jews, having developed a state that is now called Israel. And now they're advocating for a two-state solution, which is something that their own citizen is trying to do in South Africa. Where an individual is coming to South Africa advocating for a Cape independence, it's a perpetuation of what the UK has been sponsoring over the years. And us as MK party, we are not going to allow that kind of regression. We are not going to allow that kind of dispossession or allowance of people that are coming into countries to establish their own countries in the land of our birth. So we want to know, what is your position and posture against these individuals, whether they are deployed by yourselves through the MI6, or you are not privy of such. But I would tell, these are public news. You know what this individual is doing, and I would assume is a representation of your economic interest, so that you have the Cape, so that you control the Cape Point, so that you can have a stake in the South African land and the South African economy, which is what has happened, by the way, during the deputy presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa in Marikana, where Lonmin, a British-owned mining company, one would maybe term it as Lonmin as London Minerals, where the interests of the owners of the mine were advocated strongly over the interests of the workers who are toiling the land, who are supposed to benefit from those minerals, but were massacred and killed in the land of their birth. So we see a perpetuation of such in your posture and stance, and you have never said a word about the dignity and the lives of Africans. If black farmers or black people were killed, none of you stand up and against humanity and against any form of human injustice. But when anything happens to a white man, you are the first to stand up and have a word. And we are not here to sustain our diplomatic, military, or economic relations, but we are here for economic interest, so that you maintain the businesses that are operating in South Africa, that they are, we need to appease the investment, so that there is that business friendliness. Of course, we have a responsibility to build our economy. We have a responsibility to have trade relations with other countries. But the manner in which you want to operate in our country has to be considerable of our own interests and our own development agenda and our trajectory of change and transformation. Because the companies that normally operate here, when you look into the quotas, they still largely in management and control, ran by white men. And we don't see the black faces in those in the boardrooms, in the executives and the directorship of these companies. And this is against transformation, which is the policies of South Africa that we want to see being not necessarily advocated for in these legislatures, but seen operational in boardrooms and companies that want to come and do business in this country. Okay, I think, Chair, at this stage, I'll allow other members to come in and also weigh in.
Thank you, Honorable Ntshingila.